All right, welcome back. Episode number 147, Mastering Modern Selling. Tom Burton here with Carson Heady and Brandon. I don't know if he's going to come or not. He said he was stuck in a meeting. He was going to try and jam out, but hey, we'll have fun anyway because we have Lee Salz again back with us today.
Hey,
Best-selling author again.
That's right. First Meeting Differentiator dropped yesterday.
boom.
Boom.
Are we going to talk a little bit about that today?
I hope not.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can talk about your next book.
There's actually one brewing already.
Yeah, that's exactly what a writer wants to talk about after they've launched a book is the next one.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Lee, how many books do you have out now?
7.
So this is the 7th book, Lucky 7.
This is number 7, and several of them have been translated into multiple languages.
Congratulations. That's really
thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm actually really excited to talk today about the new book, not your next one, but the new one.
Good. Okay.
Because I think this whole area of discovery calls, I guess, that seem to be like, table stakes for most sales organizations.
Right.
I think they're the most, and I even look at my own company, I think they're the ones that are the most underutilized and misunderstood, and just a lot of room, that in the demo, and if you're in the software environment.
Right.
But so I'm very interested. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm looking forward to getting it. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
I am as well. Thank you.
So, all right. Well, hey, as always, we're sponsored by Fist Bump, and let's give Brandon a fist bump since he's not here. We have a new producer today from Fist Bump who's helping us out and doing a great job. So thanks to Fist Bump, and
she's a hoot, by the way.
Yeah, and she's a smart ass like the rest of us. So it seems to be
fits in perfectly.
Right, fits in well. Lee, is this your third time on the show? Second or third time?
I think it's the third. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got to do 2 more, and when we do that, I expect my 5 timers jacket. You see it on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So start getting that in the works, because when I get here for my 5th, I expect that jacket.
All right.
I like that. It's good to have goals.
It is.
And dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, before we get into the details, Lee, again, remind everybody who you are, your background, what you do, and then we'll kind of jump into some of the key parts.
Sure. So I'm Lee Salz. My firm is Sales Architects, and I'm a sales management strategist. I build strategies, processes, and tools for sales organizations to help them win more deals at the prices you want. My trilogy, if you will, and my specialty is differentiating what and how you sell. So I have a book titled Sales Differentiation, Sell Different, and the new one, The First Meeting Differentiator.
So you like to talk about things that are different or how to differentiate.
Well, I'm different.
Okay, yeah. Well, join the club.
And my license plate is DFRNT, the number 8, the letter R, differentiator.
Oh, that's beautiful. I used to have vanity plates. They were James Bond inspired, but
there you go.
Yeah, good stuff. One of the things, Lee, talking about the differentiation element, I think it's so critical because so often sellers gravitate toward the easy, the average, the needs analysis and what keeps you up at night. And what I love about this, and I was very privileged to have an advanced copy, and I read the new book. One of the things that you really focus on is what are some of the things that sellers today are getting wrong. And, Tom, you capitalized on this early, like that first meeting is mission critical. I mean, it's like that first date. You obviously want to show up as the best version of yourself.
That's right.
And if you play your cards right, you're going to walk out of there with 3, 4, 5, 10 net new opportunities. Lee, let's start there. What is the impetus for this book? Why is it important right now?
That's a great question. And it's not any more or less important today than it was 200 years ago and 200 years from now. What's interesting is if you go on Amazon and you look for a book on prospecting, how to get a meeting, there's thousands of them. Say, okay, I got the meeting. I need a book that helps me with that strategy. And it doesn't tell you how to get the meeting. It doesn't tell you what to do after the meeting. It's not about demos. It's just a construct of that meeting. There wasn't one, believe it or not. And I can't tell you how many friends in the sales world have said, I don't know why I didn't do that. And it's such a need because that first meeting is the deal foundation. There's so many things going on in that first meeting, right? We should be qualifying, which we'll talk a bit about today. We're acquiring information, we're sharing information, we're differentiating ourselves, we're arousing emotion. We'll talk a bit about that as well, because emotion is the deal energizer. If we're not arousing emotion during that meeting, now we know why our deals fizzle out. Boy, I had a great meeting, and it was really interesting, and poof, nothing ever happened. And it comes back to what happened in that first meeting.
Hey, Lee, from a customer perspective, and maybe this is covered in the book, what do you believe that the customer or the prospect, obviously in this case, is expecting, or maybe not even expecting, but wanting on that first meeting? What would they like to have from their vantage point?
Let me tell you what they don't want. They don't want a discovery meeting.
I'm shocked.
Yes. Chapter 1 of the book, discovery meetings must die.
Okay, I agree.
And here's why. How do salespeople prepare for a discovery meeting? Let me make a list of the questions I'm going to ask, the information I'm going to share with them, right? So I'll ask salespeople, if I agree to take a meeting with you, what do I get out of it? And they'll pause and they'll say, well, you'll learn about my company and what we offer. And they'll be puzzled. Well, why isn't that meaningful value? So, well, let me explain it to you, because there's two types of sales, and I'm going to use a bathroom environment to describe it. So brace yourselves, folks. We're going to go to the bathroom. You ready?
We're into the toilet already. Yep.
Okay. You buy toilet paper. I sell toilet paper. You're buying toilet paper from my competitor, and I'm saying you should be buying my toilet paper because it's superior. That's a takeaway sale. And that's what most salespeople are in. That's the environment that they're in, a takeaway. The other sale type is you buy toilet paper and I sell bidets, an alternative way of solving an issue. Like I said, most salespeople are in a takeaway sales environment. So when you say to me, I'm going to learn about my company and the what I offer, it's not meaningful value because I already have a provider. So you're asking me to take the 400 things that I have to do on my desk, put them aside, and meet with you to learn about your stuff. That's just not going to happen. I said, so let's try again. What is the meaningful value I get out of that meeting? No response. So I said, okay, there's a need here. And I know everyone loves free stuff, so I'm going to give you a URL. It's going to be very difficult to remember. It's meaningfulvalue.com. It's an excerpt from the book, but it's 10 tips on how to provide meaningful value during a first meeting. If I'm going to take a meeting with you, I have to come away wiser. I have to learn something that's going to help me either in my role or it's going to help my business. And so the mindset of discovery doesn't work. What we should have should be borrowed from the medical community. If you think about the times when you've gone to the doctor, you go for two reasons: to become wiser about your circumstances and to understand potential remedies. You sure wouldn't go if you thought you were a science experiment, right? You're going to go to the doctor. They're going to do all this testing, ask you all these questions, but it's all for them. Well, that's what a discovery meeting is. No one wants a discovery meeting. Now, the medical community doesn't call that discovery. They call it a consultation. I'm not going to say I coined the expression. It's been around forever. But I've embraced this concept of a consultation to replace discovery. And if you embrace consultation, you recognize there needs to be meaningful value for the person that you're meeting with as well. Share with me information that's going to help me in my role, that's going to help my business. That's a meeting I'd like to have. And then once you define that meaningful value, you fold it into your prospecting messaging. By the way, Carson, when we get together, I'll share with you a best practice that manufacturing executives are taking advantage of to creatively reduce costs. Oh, I'm going to learn something when I meet with Lee. I'll take that meeting.
I love it. And I love your analogies. I would say this rings so true. I will tell you that in my entire experience in the last 11 years in technology,
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a very differentiated approach, and it has yielded results because of what you just said, Lee. In fact, I started looking at the reasons that customers didn't want to talk to me
Mm-hmm.
or didn't like my predecessor, and I funneled that into my prospecting. And it was all because they were already paying us, and didn't even know what they had. They didn't even know the resources that were available to them. They didn't know who
Mm-hmm.
their extended team was. They felt like we only showed up when it was time for the annuity business. And so I
Right.
funneled all that into my prospecting and said, hey, it's my job to make sure you're aware of what you're entitled to as a result of your existing investments, how we
Mm-hmm.
can invest in things that you may already be doing or thinking about. Bam, I got the meetings left and right. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time you get there, the conversation is already valuable to them because they're able to put that name with the face, and you're telling them about things that they would want to know. But guess
Right.
what? Once you've earned the right to be in there, these meetings have so much potential to turn into so much more. I'd
Yes.
love to spend another moment on this, Lee, because I
Sure.
think this is, I want every seller, and I challenge every seller out there to really be thinking about what has been your stumbling block in getting the meeting and proving out the value. But Lee, as we are sellers today,
Mm-hmm.
how can we best prepare for that meeting?
Yes, that's a great point. Study after study keeps coming back with the same answer: personalization. That when you're prospecting, if you're sending generic emails, if you're leaving generic voicemails, or heaven forbid you get someone live, it's a generic conversation. Your first meeting is generic. You will not be selling anything in 2025. It's just not going to happen. So you should be coming in having done research, and boy, it's gotten easy today with tools like ChatGPT and other AI tools out there to really become informed about the challenges that a decision influencer, that's the term I use to refer to anyone and everyone that affects the decision for what you sell, for what's keeping them up at night. What are their goals, priorities, challenges today? Because it's, of course, a moving target. And then with what you're selling, how does that correlate? What's the alignment between what's keeping them up at night? What are their priorities? And what you address? Because if you don't have alignment, you're not getting a meeting. And if you somehow get a meeting, you are not getting a deal. But I'm going to prove to you this issue of discovery. We work so hard to get that meeting, right? Prospecting is really hard. It's daunting. And then we get the meeting, we show up, got Sunday best on, looking all good. Yes, if you can read it, the First Meeting Differentiator. We get into that meeting and we blow it in the first few seconds. Because discovery says you start the meeting by setting an agenda. Tom, what I'd like to do today is ask you some questions about your business, and then I'll tell you about what we offer. What I want to do today, right in the first few moments of the meeting, you've conveyed the purpose of this meeting is for me. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Lee,
That's what the discovery mindset is.
before we go any further, though, and I just sit here and I think about the sales teams I've worked with, I
Yeah.
think there's a false belief or maybe a perception that the discovery call is valuable to the customer because I'm going to learn. And then when I go do a demo or a proposal, I can then tailor that demo
Mm-hmm.
or proposal to what I learn in the discovery call. So, Lee, by
Right.
asking you all these questions, I may not be helping you now, but I'm helping you down the road.
Understood.
Is that a common perception that you see as well? And I think you have to, what
Right.
I'm hearing you say is you got to kind of break that idea, because that first meeting, and like anything else, is so
Mm-hmm.
important. You don't have time to waste it with just getting information and hoping that
Yep.
it pays off on the second meeting. That
You've
probably
got a short
That's a great
rope.
point.
right. You
You've
got
got to
It
really,
is. It is.
you've got to really prove your worth quick.
Right. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. The overarching objective of first meeting is to pique a high enough level of interest that they want to continue interacting with you afterwards. That's the overarching goal. That's what we're looking for. And there are going to be questions that we ask, because part of it is we got to qualify the deal. A salesperson's most precious resource is time, the minutes that they have. And top salespeople are so careful in where they invest that time. I have this conversation all the time with salespeople, a post-mortem on a deal, long sales cycle. And they'll say, yeah, this is a deal that we lost. And they'll take me through it. I said, oh, you didn't lose the deal. They said, well, we didn't win it. I agree with you. You didn't win it. But as we've talked it through, they were never in the game. They were never a consideration,
Yeah.
and some better questioning in the first 15 minutes of that meeting, that first meeting, they would have known that. And it happens all the time. And what causes that to happen is there's a tool that salespeople have been given called an ideal client profile. And it's the worst thing you can ever give to a salesperson. I'm pausing because you're probably going, this guy's nuts. I'll explain. An ideal client profile says if all the stars were to align, this is the kind of business we'd love to have. It's like a lottery ticket. It's a 1 in a gazillion chance that you're ever going to stumble across one of these opportunities. Look up the word ideal in the dictionary. It says only in the imagination. Sales is hard enough, and you're going to give me something that's only in my head. But what salespeople do need is a target client profile. And I'm not wordsmithing. It's a totally different tool, totally different concept. A target client profile says, this is who will perceive the most meaningful value in what we offer, which gives deals the greatest likelihood of coming to fruition. Qualifying is one of the most underappreciated skills with executives and with salespeople. And what we do is we say to salespeople, hey, you got to qualify the deal. Like, yep, of course, I got to qualify the deal. But we don't give them the tool to benchmark against. So this is a 12-component tool, and there's a chapter in the book that I lay out how to put this together. Now, if you're a salesperson, you can put this together yourself. If you're a sales leader listening to this, this is something you can put together for your team. And if you are going to do that, I'd have a session to do this collaboratively. But now you have a benchmark tool. And every step of your sales process is banging against this profile with the question of, do they perceive enough meaningful value for us to win the deal at the prices we want? That's what we're looking for there.
In that targeted, would you call it targeted ideal client profile?
Target client profile.
Target ideal.
No ideal. No ideal.
No ideal.
We're doing away with ideal.
Ideal
because that's only in our head.
Okay. So targeted client type profile, TCP.
TCP, target client profile. Yeah.
Okay. So are you then incorporating in that not just the firmographic or the psychographic data or whatever, but really things that emotionally can move the needle and or will emotionally move the needle? Give us some ideas of some of the things that are included in that profile.
Yeah. So I'll start at the very beginning. Size. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. What's too big? What's too small? What's just right? Where if they're this size, they're going to perceive the most meaningful value. Now, I'm going to share with you that I mentioned 12 components. If what you sell, there isn't a size consideration, I'm not asking you to put size in there. But a lot of sales do. We go, yeah, this is too small. And so they're going to look at the price and say, yeah, this is ridiculous because we'd never get enough meaningful value out of it.
Yep.
And then if you get too big, they go, well, we could just do it ourselves at that price. So what's that right size for them to perceive the most meaningful value in what you offer? That's an example of one. Requirements is another one. And that's in an affirmative statement. The requirements that you want them to have, because if they have them, they're going to perceive the most meaningful value. For example, let's say you're a service provider and your specialty, your differentiator is providing services around the world. You want to hear that requirement that this has to be provided all around the globe. Because if it's only domestic, they're not going to perceive enough meaningful value to buy at the price that you want. Those are the kinds of things that are going into that profile. And so as you work on that, as you put that together, and it starts with your research. You asked me about that a few moments ago, Tom. I've got this profile. When I'm first researching a client, I'm also banging that against that profile to see, is this someone I should send that email to? Yeah. Right? Or make that phone call to.
I mean, to me, in the world of account-based marketing, to me, that profile could be way up the line, right? And even deciding who is on your ABM list and who are your target, hence the name, right? Who is your target customer? And so ideally, even from the marketing action, it's percolating all the way through, even to that point.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned a word before, which I really like, emotion. Okay. There's an expression in sales. I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to guess you've heard this expression 4 million times. You ready? People buy based on emotion and justify their decisions with logic. Did I get the number right? 4 million?
4 million.
You've heard that 4 million times.
Give or take. Yeah, give or take.
4 million and one, because you heard me say it today.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Is there a salesperson on the planet who has not heard that? Every one of them has heard that expression. Now find a salesperson that puts it into practice. I'll bet you the deed to my house that if we recorded a first meeting across all different industries, all sale types, all around the world, 99 of that 100, if not all 100, the entire conversation is logic. We've all heard the expression and no one does it. And I really struggled with that. I was like, I don't understand. Everybody hears it, but nobody does it. And then I had this epiphany. I have two sons that play college baseball. We talked about that last time. And I remember when they were first learning the game, the coaches would say, okay, Stephen and David, the name of the game is to hit home runs. And they'd go, got it, big smile, got it, hit home runs. But you know what? They didn't hit home runs until someone taught them how to do it. We are preaching to salespeople this expression: people buy based on emotion, justify their decisions with logic, but we haven't taught them how to do it. And there's a chapter in the book dedicated to that, because emotion, as I mentioned earlier, it's the deal energizer. If we're not engaging their emotions, high likelihood the deal is going to fizzle out. I'll give you an example. Think about the questions we ask in a first meeting. And Carson, I think you even asked it when we were first starting up. What's the biggest challenge you have in your business today? I think that's what you asked me, right? Isn't that what you said when we were starting off?
Along those lines, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
what are the big challenges that they have? You know, we
There you
tend
go.
to ask the what keeps you up at night, but
Yeah, what keeps you up at night?
what
Yes.
problems are you trying to solve currently?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that is a fact-based question. It's a logic question that's going to yield information coming back to you. But what if we phrase the question this way? Carson, what is that one thing in your business, the one thing that you're like, oh, I got to figure this out? What's that one thing? Now, here we are in a podcast interview. It's a fictitious environment, but I'll bet you both felt that question. And that's what I want the person on the other side of the desk. I want them to feel the question, and then I want to feel their response back. I don't want factual information. I want color. I want flavor. I want texture. I want to know how they feel about what they're sharing with me.
One of my favorite questions to ask an executive on a consultation, and I had one today. First time I met with this individual, and I asked, what brought you here, and what do you want your legacy to be? Because guess what? If I can help make that a reality,
yeah,
that is going to earn a seat at the table. And I love the fact that you're looking at the target profile in the way that you are, because I think a lot of times people make gut decisions based on what is presented to them. Mm-hmm. But the reality of the matter is, if you connect at the right altitude within these organizations and you can appeal to them as to why you would be something different mm-hmm. to consider. And frankly, you don't try to go toe-to-toe on the strengths of your competition.
That's right.
You're trying to go toe-to-toe based on the opportunities and threats of the competition and your own strengths. But you can't do that until you do that consultation. If you walked into a doctor today and they diagnosed you before ever doing any type of analysis or x-ray or question, you'd wonder what the heck was going on.
Exactly.
But the reason we do that to our customers all day, every day. Why is that?
That's right. That's right. We do. And part of it's because we have a discovery mindset. I'm just going to ask what I need to ask. I don't care if you get any value out of that interaction. That's the flaw. This whole emotional piece took an interesting turn for me a couple of years ago. One of my favorite all-time television shows is Law and Order. The original, not all the spinoffs, just the original. Right? And Carson, it came back a few years ago as a reboot. And there was an episode a couple of years ago where the prosecutor was trying a case. He said, I got all the evidence, slam dunk conviction. But he noticed the jury wasn't with him. So he's really frustrated. So he goes to the district attorney, he takes him through the case, and the district attorney said, the problem with your case is it's all fact, no heart, and the jury isn't buying it. All logic, no emotion, and the jury isn't buying it. So it's like, oh, wait a minute. So attorneys are using emotion to affect decision-making. Boy, wouldn't that be helpful for the sales community? Well, Law and Order says rip from the headlines, right? But I still can't use that as a legitimate source for the book. So I interviewed a judge, a prosecutor, a litigator, and a trainer of litigators in how they use emotion to affect jury decisions. And the conversations were fascinating, and I detail it in the book. But the prosecutor said to me, when I'm trying a case, I'm going to take the jury on a journey. Say that fast 3 times. Jury on a journey from having the ability to convict to having the desire to convict. Ability to convict to the desire to convict. Bring that around to sales. The ability to contract with us to having the desire to contract with us. And he then went on to say, for example, if I have a firefighter on the stand, I'm not asking fact-based questions. I'm asking emotive questions like, what did you feel? What did you feel when you entered that building? I want the jury to feel as if they were in that fire with the firefighter, because I know emotion drives action. That engagement will get me the conviction I'm looking for.
The value that we start with out of the gate and the approach that we take in that first meeting earns the right to influence. And ultimately, it's once we've earned the right to influence and we've earned that right to be a trusted advisor and a consultant, that is how we ultimately get to the place where we can de-risk that customer's decision to go with us, because we're ultimately asking them to decouple themselves from status quo, or honestly, a path that they may not be married to. They just don't want to mess up. And unless you can earn the right to influence, that's why these meetings go nowhere. And frankly, sometimes because a lot of customers, they're non-confrontational. They may take the meeting with us. I've spent so much time over the last several years, and I think it was Liz Wendling, who was an ex-guest on our show. She talks so much about the sales language and how much time, like, look at your own writing and your own speech, and how much time do we say, I would love to do this. I want to do that. Who cares? It's got to be buyer-centric now more than ever.
Yes. Do you know, there's only one person in the world who cares what you want. Do you know who that is? Do you know who it is?
I don't, sadly.
It's your mom. No one else cares what you want.
I buy that. I buy that.
So that comes back to when we talked about setting the agenda, what I want to do today. That's what happens in discovery. In a consultation, we would ask a question. Tom, for this to be a great use of your time, what do you want to make sure we talk about here today? Does 2 things. I've now communicated that I care you get meaningful value out of our time together. And the answer to that question could chart the course for the entire meeting. We make sales so much harder than it needs to be. It's an open book test. That question, I now know what the big things are to talk about.
So I'm going to connect the dots here a little bit, because what you said earlier, right? The goal of the first meeting is to create enough interest where they want to continue to have a second meeting or a third meeting.
That's
or
right.
whatever they want to, or as you said earlier, Carson, a second date, right? I want to go have a second date that's there.
That's right.
And I think, Carson, you brought up a really good point. On that second date, you want to now have a position with that prospect of at least an inkling of being that trusted advisor, right? You've earned maybe a step of that along the way for that second meeting. But then, so in order to get that interest that you're creating, right, to have the second meeting, Lee, what I'm hearing you say is emotion has to be, and when you use the word interest, there's inherently at least some dose of emotion in that, right? When I'm interested in something that's not entirely logical, there's a emotional drive. There's an emotional thing that want to lean into it a little bit more.
Yes.
So I have to incorporate into that interest at least a dose of emotion.
Yes.
It can't be 100% logic. Correct. Then if I go, what I'm hearing you say, if I go one step further back, how do I create that emotion is just intelligently rephrasing the questions that you ask and how you ask them. So you may be getting to the same place if you were just adding a logical set of questions, but by restructuring the questions, you can get your answers, but at the same time create some emotion, which then fuels that interest. Am I hearing that correctly?
You're doing great. You're doing great, Tom.
Okay. And I haven't even read the book yet.
So we'll take it a step further.
Tom, we can take the training wheels off. You're ready to go.
I'm ready to go do a meeting. I do have a meeting right after this call.
Perfect.
So, what you should do is feed the transcript from this to the ChatGPT and ask it to tell you what to ask your prospect.
There you go.
Have it just do the call for me.
I need a Lee bot to give me my first meeting agenda.
Right.
Go create that for me.
Okay, so let's keep going with this. As you guys probably remember from prior visits, I'm a sales contrarian. And one of the things that salespeople have been told is that you present features with benefits. That's what we need to be doing on first meetings, right? And there's a chapter in the book, the title is Features, Benefits, and Boredom. That's what you do. If I'm going to present features and benefits, you better bring a pillow, folks, because you're going to put them to sleep. See, here's what we're up against in a first meeting. And we may have talked about this before. Herman Ebbinghaus, does that name ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the forgetting curve, that people forget 50% of what they learn in 24 hours and remember less than 10% a week later. So there's another study or several other studies that talk about retention. Facts by themselves are not remembered, but when they're enveloped in stories, compelling stories, they're much more likely to be remembered. So we're up against that forgetting curve, and we say, how do we beat that curve? Well, one of the things we can do, rather than lecture on features and benefits, is that we share emotive stories that they feel something. So one of the things that's missing in a lot of sales organizations, they go, yeah, I love that concept of telling stories. Okay, how long have you been in business? 45 years. Great. So you brought in clients for the last 45 years. You hired me as a salesperson today. How do I learn those stories? Uh-oh. So one of my recommendations, and I talk about this in the book, is for sales leaders to develop a deal pursuit story portfolio, where you take those deal pursuits and you break them down in such a way that even though I wasn't with the company when this happened, I can learn it. I can deliver it inside the company so you can see that I know it. And then I can be sharing these stories in the field as if I was there 30 years ago when this client came to be. So that is so important. If we want to, if you buy in and say, yeah, we don't want them talking features and benefits, we want them telling stories, we got to give salespeople the tools to be able to do so.
Yeah, de-risking the decision for the client to move forward is so key. Stories are a great way of doing that. Introducing the prospect to someone else who's a client who's grappled with something similar. You know, as much as we want to believe that the potential client laps up everything we say like spilt milk, sometimes the best thing we can do as sellers is make those key introductions and get out of the way so that the magic can happen.
That's right.
You know, it's not about us. And I think that is a key element. The more we can de-emphasize our role as a hero in this whole process and make the first meeting and make the buying process about our customer as the hero, the better. That's what delivers outcomes and wins.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, at the heart of everything, Lee, you know, one of the things that I'd love to dig in on is how do we culturally make this shift? Because I think the key element, you've talked about how we can do this as a seller. You've talked about how sales leaders can do this, but I mean, there's a lot of mediocre managers that have instilled this culture or have said, hey, go out and have that discovery meeting. And so like, we're actually, this is a pretty monumental shift that we would undertake to really change the way sales operates into this differentiated facet. How can I, as a sales leader today, start to implement this with my team?
It's a great question. And I was so mindful of that in writing this book as you got to preview. The book is designed as a guide to present this and introduce it into your organization. There's chock full of stories, but also there's workshops and downloads. So I guide you through, as you're reading this book, I guide you through the steps to be able to embed this in your sales organization. There's actually a half dozen downloads in the book. So yes, it is a significant change.
Chock full of value.
But you're not really changing the process. You're changing the way you go about the process, right? To be
depends on the organization.
Okay.
Right. But I'm looking at, that's why it's called the first meeting. That step of the process, whether it be virtual, whether it be in person, that's the step that I'm looking to affect with this book.
Yeah, and there's always going to be a first meeting, right? There has to be a first meeting somewhere along the line there. So however that takes place, and I do like that better now, that a lot better than a discovery, because everyone wants to call the first meeting the discovery. This is just the
Yes.
first meeting, and now lay out the basic framework of what makes sense for you for that first meeting.
That's right.
I'm big on the from to examples. And so, Lee, I think in your book you do a great job of talking about a lot of the, the miscues that we may be making. But as I like to tell sellers, a lot of times it's not, you don't have to do a drastic overhaul of your process. It can be small tweaks that have really exponential gains in your process, rather than saying it this way, like, hey, what keeps you up at night? Or, what are you trying to solve for? You can finesse and massage and ask the question a little bit differently.
Yes.
I'd love to hear some examples of like how we as sellers can be tweaking our process that in small ways that aren't going to feel super uncomfortable. Because let's be real, if we go out and we start doing this differently, it's going to feel different. We're building new muscle. So what I'd love to hear from you is how can we be making some of those small tweaks to make those big gains? And I say this fully cognizant that a lot of times when we get these meetings, we spend a lot of time. We may prepare. We've got all this data at our fingertips. But I will tell you from my experience is I found that the more that I can be transparent and communicative about how this customer can optimize their experience with my company, how I can unlock the maximum amount of resources, value, and frankly, even situations where when I wasn't the fit, I recommended a friend at my competitor because I'm like, hey, we're not a fit today. I'm more focused on the relationship. I will make an introduction to this person. I am on standby if there's some things that we can work on together. But in my mind, that first meeting, you've got to really establish yourself as a differentiated partner. How can we best do that?
True. So I want to touch upon something that you referenced there. I don't look at it as the salespeople are making mistakes, and the book doesn't read that way either.
Right.
I look at it as opportunities. I remember when Stephen and David, my boys, when they were young and they went for pitching lessons, and I took them to the best person I could find, a former closer for the Braves and the Blue Jays. Guy absolutely knew his stuff. They had one lesson with this guy. Remember I told you they both went on to play college baseball. So I was at the lesson. They're all done. And the three of them come up to me. And I said, so how'd it go? Well, David did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. Stephen did this wrong, that wrong. Nothing positive whatsoever. It was all negative. And they got in the car and like, yeah, Dad, we don't want to go back to him. It was, again, they were the top players on their teams.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, this guy's, all he wants to talk about is what they're doing wrong. So I look at it as these are opportunities that wherever your sales needle is today, if it's over here, my goal is to take you to here, to here, to here. It's all upside. It's all opportunity for improvement. And that's the way the book reads, as you know, Carson.
Love that.
So what are some things that you say in the short term, what can I be doing? Well, let's start at the very beginning. Let's define that meaningful value. Let's find that meaningful value that they're going to get out of that first meeting with us. And once we've identified that, and we talked earlier about the opportunity of adding that into our prospecting messaging, we make that a core part of that first meeting. Because if we do that, that's one of the tenets that's going to get us that next meeting. When we look at the questions that we ask, and I did this exercise with a group this morning, make a list of all the questions that you are commonly asking today during a first meeting. And I'm going to guess all of them are logic type questions. Select from that list the ones that there is an opportunity and a necessity to turn into an emotive question. So not every question needs to be this emotive question that they're crying on the couch. But there are certain ones that there's an opportunity and a necessity to go from asking it in a logic-based fashion into an emotive fashion because it's going to get them to take action. And then after you do that, practice it. So now we got the training wheels on. We're not ready for the unicycle. We got the training wheels on. Practice it. And once you have it to a point where you say you're ready for the field, take it into a meeting and see how it lands.
I asked an executive this week, I said, when your board calls, what are they complaining about?
Oh my gosh, they're complaining about this, that, and the other, right?
Boom. Because if we can solve one of those problems together, or if we can make you the hero in the organization,
that's it.
Guess what that's going to achieve? And then
you're in.
Emotion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's one of the things that I would be doing with the questions. whatever knowledge and insight you have of your company today, I would create stories. So look at if there's this one competitor that you're commonly up against and you've beaten them and you've got a great case study of a story. This is someone that was having challenges with A, B, and C. They're working with this other group. And here's the solution that we constructed for them. And here's the results of that. Develop some of those stories that you know you're going to need 80% of the time to get yourself out of that feature benefit lecture.
I think that's super important. I think, again, I'm in a B2B enterprise sort of sales situation, but what I'm finding more and more is they want to know what their peers are doing, right?
Yes.
The prospect wants to know what the peers are doing, and not from a way of, trying to steal, but just they want to know, are they keeping up? Are they leveling up? Are they behind? Where do they fit? And so I think if you can tell those stories with non-confidential data, so to speak,
right,
that's really valuable to them when they're going in.
So imagine you say, Tom, what you shared with me today reminds me of this other client we've been working with. They're actually in the same industry as you, and the person we're working with actually has the same title as you.
Yeah.
And they were really struggling, just like you mentioned here, with dealing with A, B, and C. And what we did for them was we came up with this plan, blah, 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 blah. And they absolutely love it. And here are the results that they've gotten from it. But they'll remember that story.
Not only will they remember that story, but this goes back to earning the right to be the trusted advisor. They're going to now look at you. Well, you must be the trusted advisor for this other company.
That's right.
Why?
Bingo.
And I trust or I respect that other company, so I should consider you a trusted advisor for.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think that's a huge one. I think that's a huge takeaway, to be able to incorporate those stories in there that are, again, illustrating what a peer is doing or someone in their industry.
Yeah. So now one of the things that I see that salespeople do with those first meetings is they try to do too much. Remember, we're up against that Herman Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. So if they're bringing samples, every possible sample, let's get the demo in that first meeting. Let me bring my CEO with me, my compliance person, my head of operations, my CIO, bring everybody to the party. Here's the thing. While they don't remember most of what you've talked about a week later, they don't recognize that they don't remember all of that. So we force so much into that first meeting, we don't do a good job of acquiring information because we're just so quick to, well, let me tell them stuff. There's a concept I talk about in the book called a consultation cliffhanger. And I pulled from the concept of a television cliffhanger. If you think about what they do in the TV world, the last episode of a series in the season, they have a cliffhanger. And the sole purpose of that cliffhanger is what?
Leave you hanging and make you come back next time.
Make you come back. And one of the most famous ones is Dallas back in the 1970s.
Who shot JR?
Who shot JR? And we talked about that all summer long, which is exactly what the TV company wanted us to do. And we were eagerly there opening night to find out who did it. Right?
Love it.
With sales, when we look at this consultation cliffhanger, so often we're like, I'll get asked, how do I get them to meet with me again? And my question back is, why should they meet with you again? Well, if you give them everything in the first meeting, there's no reason to meet with you again, right? So we want to temper what we're accomplishing in that meeting. Remember the overarching goal, to peak a high enough level of interest that they want to continue interacting with you. So bringing the CEO in, that's next time. The demo, that's next time. The compliance person, that's another time. Because if you try to do too much in that meeting, you don't do any of it well, and they don't remember the things that you want them to remember.
Lee, any other key etiquette that you can think of? Like, I'll tell you, when I go into a first meeting, I'm the same way. I like to go in by myself because here's the thing. I don't want it to be intimidating. I don't want to overpower, especially when you look at the balance of power and you've got like 6 people to 1, 2 with the customer, like, my goodness, the optics are lousy. I like to go in by myself. I don't even open my laptop. I have a notebook so I can they can see I'm physically taking notes. I do not look distracted. I don't have my cell phone out. It's very conversational, and I may jot down some notes because that shows, hey, I'm paying attention and I want to have some key elements. But I'm also going through and throughout the conversation, I'm peppering in those possible next date type things. Like, hey, you know
Yes.
what? This is an area where we could really lean in, and I'd love to introduce you to this person, that person, or I think this person on my team would be a great
Yes.
resource. Or we did this recently with another customer. That might be a good introduction for you.
Yes.
Jotting those things down, and then some of the power is going to also come in the recap. Like when I send that follow-up email and maybe I loop in some members of my team, like
Yes.
I think that's how you give the highest probability of a second date. How can
Yes.
what are some of your like first meeting etiquette tips that you've got?
Yeah. So you just hit upon one of the things that sets me off. When I go to a restaurant and waiters or waitresses don't take notes of your order, and then they screw it up. It's like, you're not going to score any points with me because you memorized it. I want my meal right. But there's something when we are in a meeting, taking notes communicates that what they're saying is important. And I do the same thing when I talk with prospects. I mean, I can record my Zooms. That's easy enough to do. But what I always say is, you're probably going to hear some plinking in the background because I'm going to be taking some notes based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
What they're saying is important, and I want to remember it, and that matters. So that's one important piece. The other thing is, if you, again, we talked a lot about a doctor environment. If you want to make somebody really uncomfortable, start taking notes, but don't ask permission to do so. Right? When you're in a doctor's office and they're doing something and you see them taking notes and you can't see what they're writing, you're, God, what are they writing down? Am I dying here? What's going on? So one of the things that I like to do is, if you don't mind, I know we're going to be covering a lot of ground here today. I don't want to forget anything. Do you mind if I take notes? Of course, no one's going to say you can't do that. But it's a nice etiquette thing, as you said, to get that permission to take notes. I'm going to jump to the end of the meeting because you mentioned etiquette. And this is such a simple one. And I'm sure you see it all the time. It doesn't happen. Say thank you. The end of the meeting. Thank you for investing time with me. Remember, they had 400 things to do on their plate, and they put those aside. They gave you 5 minutes, if they gave you 50 minutes. They put those things aside to meet with you. So thank them for investing time with you. And then you're going to give them the meaningful value question. See if we hit the mark. Let's say you think the meeting went well. So, Tom, how did we do today? I want to hear them say some variation of, this was time well spent. I'm so glad we got together today. That tells me I've hit the mark for providing meaningful value during that meeting. And then the last piece, and this takes discipline. And even to this day, it takes discipline with me, and it's for everyone. So let's say this meeting's winding down, everything went great. How often do we say, you know what, Carson, I'll ping you next week and we'll schedule a time to get together again? No, we got them right there. We know their calendar is right here. Everybody has it. It's in their phone. So a great first meeting ends with two things: define next steps and a scheduled next interaction. Has to happen. I get asked all the time, Lee, what do you do about ghosting? What are your recommendations there? The one thing that I've found that works significantly well in eliminating ghosting is scheduling meetings and sending invites. Because if it's in their calendar, there's a high likelihood they're going to show up. If you don't schedule it, number one, you're going to extend your sales cycle, right? Because it's not call them next week. You may reach out next week, but you're going to connect with them in a month. And we already said the forgetting curve says less than 10% a week later. I don't even know what it says a month out. If you ever connect with them again, right, 0. So right then and there, that's one of the things I tell my clients. If you're struggling to do that, put a little Post-it on your computer to remind you. Next steps, scheduled interaction must happen.
That reminds me of my old call center days. I literally had on my screen like the 4 questions that I had to nail while I had them on the phone. I love that.
And then the last piece of that, and you touched upon it, Carson, is to say, By the way, I'm going to send you an email later today. The subject is going to be recap, where I'm going to summarize the key points that we talked about here today. And in the book, there's a chapter that lays out how to put together an effective recap email. That's another way that you defeat the forgetting curve, because you get to highlight those points that you want them to remember.
It's incredible. I think AI is changing the game too from that vantage.
That helps. That helps.
My meetings, and I don't always record because I do want the customer, like if I have a remote conversation, I want them to feel very comfortable being candid, that there isn't a transcript. Yes. And that's God right. Gave me a few gifts. I can type really fast, so I'll take notes. I'll ask for permission and say, hey, I don't want to appear distracted. I am taking some notes here. But what's great is I can funnel those notes into my Copilot or my engine, and I can get those like, hey, write the recap for me. I can massage it. I mean, I'm saving an hour, but do it right away, because if every day you wait to send that recap, your momentum fizzles out.
100%. I would say same day as the meeting. Same day as the meeting. It's got to go out.
And I want to amplify one thing. I've been sitting here thinking about this a lot, what you said earlier about, the forget syndrome or the forgetting
curve.
Right. Because I've noticed and I've watched, in coaching salespeople, if on a Zoom meeting like this, and let's say the prospect's there and they're just, fire hosing all this information.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time the prospect is, like nodding their head, right? Because they're trying to be polite.
Kind of like what I'm doing, yes.
Yeah, like nodding their head, like, and so the sales rep thinks that they're getting all of this, right? They're duplicating all of this fire hose, and probably all of it isn't even like, it's all foreign. It's like a foreign language. So I think the more is less. I'm sorry, less is more is a very important point of that first meeting. Is really think about the quality of that meeting versus trying to put the quantity of the kitchen sink in there and go from there. I really think
I think you had it right both ways.
Which way?
Less. More is less is also true in what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, exactly. More is less and less is more, right? In that situation. And I think we all get the meeting and we want to cram everything we can into it.
That's right.
And then we get this, what we believe is positive reinforcement when they're nodding and all that stuff. And yet probably, as you said, not even 50% is retained. Probably the more you give them, the less it's going to be retained.
Exactly.
And
let's be real. I think sometimes we, as sellers, like our intention is strong. Like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves going into those meetings to, God, I got to ask everything, or I've got to say all of these things. It's so important, but it's really not. Like what is critical in that meeting is developing an actual, genuine, authentic connection with the person you're talking to.
Absolutely.
The outcome. That's what you're really trying to do. And if you can like depressurize that situation for yourself, I honestly don't prep a ton. I mean, I do get some AI data points on what they're, what a press release is telling me. Like, is there something interesting that surfaces? And frankly, a lot of times, so I can match a story to what might come up in the course of the conversation. Like, hey, I can tell like you guys are grappling with this, or, I've seen out on Sales Navigator or LinkedIn, like some announcements you guys are merging or you've got an acquisition or whatever it is. Exactly. Tell me more about like, what are you guys grappling with? Like, what are the decisions that are falling under your jurisdiction right now that are relevant to that? Like, really hone into their world. Like you want them talking to you talking ratio to be very unbalanced. I want them to do a lot of the talking so that I can listen. I don't, they can research a lot of the things that they may or may not want to know about my company online. And I want to be able to go very specific and diagnose based on what I learn about them.
And the concept that we talked about of asking emotive questions, when you say about how do we get them talking more, they're going to talk a lot more when emotion is aroused than if it's just a fact-based question. They're just going to give you basic information if that's what you ask for.
Yes.
Bingo.
Hey, I want to make sure we have time to let everybody know where to get the book and everything. Is there any final, though?
Do you mean this one, Tom?
That book? The first?
This one.
The one that came out yesterday, yeah.
Yes, the First Meeting Differentiator. Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Lee.
So the book is available anywhere and everywhere you like to buy books. Of course, Amazon. Wherever you buy it, be sure to head to firstmeetingbook.com. First of all, you can download the first chapter there, but when you do buy it, go to that website and sign up for the bonus. I'm going to be delivering 3 private masterclasses exclusively for those who purchase the book.
I'm going to go there right now.
There you go.
Yeah. Awesome. And I assume Amazon, as you said, and all the usual places.
And all the usual places have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So as we wrap, is there anything that we should have covered that we didn't, that you think is super important or super relevant for that first meeting?
I think we covered a lot of ground here over this hour.
Yeah.
And I think it gives everyone a good taste of the importance of revisiting how you handle that first meeting. Like I said, it's the deal foundation. It determines whether or not there's going to be a deal in the future. So like I said, it baffles me that there are thousands and thousands of books that tell you how to get a meeting, and there weren't any that say this is what to do when you get it.
Yeah.
Well, now there is. And Lee,
now there is.
You earned a second meeting with me.
I appreciate
we're going to
that.
get him back for number 4, and then we'll have to start worrying about that.
That's right. I think I think Lee is now tied with Larry Levine and maybe Bryn Tillman for most appearances.
Christie's, I think, has got the lead still. Christy.
Well, she's kind of like a guest co-host, right?
Yeah. Who's that?
Christy Jones has been on a lot of episodes because she's been a guest co-host when she steps in when one of us are out. So she wins with an asterisk.
Yeah. Hey, and I wanted to thank Carson. Unfortunately, I wanted to thank the people that commented today. We didn't really get to many of the comments. Stephanie, Dominique, Lee, everybody who commented, thank you. As Lee, as you said, thank you for taking your time to listen out of a valuable day. Normally we try and get to more comments, but we knew, Lee, you had so much to cover that we were trying to jam in.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
Great stuff. And yeah, we'll definitely have you back as we start to apply the stuff and learn it.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What was the web address again, Lee, for the
firstmeetingbook.com.
Firstmeetingbook.com. Okay.
And the other one that we shared earlier was meaningfulvalue.com. That's for the tip sheet of 10 ways to provide meaningful value in that first meeting.
God, I just feel like we got a ton of value here. Like, Lee, you really brought the goods today.
That's right.
Thank you. I had a good night's sleep.
It helps. That's where I'll begin.
Carson, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah. Thank you to all of our commenters and viewers. Lee, always a pleasure to see you. Congrats again on the book. Thank you for being here. And until next time, everybody, happy modern selling.
Thanks, everyone.